Morning viewers, welcome back. Today again I am focusing on unit 2 only, that's on definition, subject indirect tax 1 for the fifth semester students affiliated to the University of Mysore. The session is 13th session. In my last class, that's on in session 12, we have discussed on the definitions only, that is on actionable claim and on the address of delivery and on address on record, etc. Uh, in today's video, I am focusing on the definitions. In some more definitions we will discuss today. The learning objective is about the meaning of turnover and the aggregate turnover, and also to understand the concept for the computation of turnover and aggregate turnover. Outcome is the students, it helps to understand the meaning uh, of aggregate turnover and also to have the knowledge on the concept of aggregate turnover and turnover. Here on the aggregate turnover, the meaning we had to understand the concept because we had to solve some problems on to find the transactions, to know, to take it on the aggregate turnover at the time of computing the turnover and aggregate turnover. The introduction is as I discussed in earlier class. We know that GST is introduced on 1st July 2017, and GST is levied on the supply of goods and services, and it is a dual GST. It is levied both by the center and the states, as it has a concurrent powers to levy the GST. It's confirmed by Article 246A of the Constitution of India, and the definition is on the aggregate turnover. Aggregate turnover means the aggregate value of the all taxable supplies. Aggregate value of all taxable supplies. All taxable supplies means any interstate supply, any intrastate supply of goods and services that we are considering here, excluding the value of any inward supplies. Any inward supply means the supply which is in the receipt by the supplier, on which tax is payable by a person on reverse charge basis, that you have to exclude here for the aggregate turnover. And second thing that comes under aggregate turnover that is included in the aggregate turnover is the exempted supplies. Even though the exempted supplies are the supplies which are exempted from the GST, that we also called as a tax-free supplies, but at the time of calculating, computing aggregate turnover, the exempt supplies are also included. Third is that any export of goods or services or both is included in the aggregate turnover. Any transactions with respect to the export of any goods or services is included. And interstate supplies. Interstate supply of goods and services are included in the aggregate turnover, and any intrastate supply of goods and services are included in the aggregate turnover. So interstate supply means any supply that takes place from one state to another state, and intrastate supply means any transactions or supply takes place within the state or within the union territories, we consider as a intrastate supplies. So these supplies are included in the aggregate turnover. And interstate supply of the persons having the same permanent account number, that is a person having PAN number, is included in the interstate supplies in the aggregate turnover. The transactions that are excluded from the aggregate turnover. Some transactions that will be stated in the problem at the time of solving, or if you know the meaning of exactly what the aggregate turnover means, it's easy to solve the problems to compute the aggregate turnover. So some transactions are to be excluded at the time of computing the aggregate turnover. Those means here the any inward supplies, any supply it is in the receipt of the supplier, those inward supplies are excluded. And any due of taxes like IGST, CGST, SGST, UTGST, and any compensation cess if it is due or paid. These taxes are not considered at the time of computing the aggregate turnover. And supply of goods after completion of job work. Any uh, uh, job work, any supply is made for the purpose of job work by the supplier, so those goods will be taken back by the supplier after the completion of the work. So those transactions cannot be treated as a supply here, then it is not included in the aggregate turnover. Next definition is the casual taxable person. So before that, we'll have some transactions on aggregate turnover, which is helpful to compute how to compute the aggregate turnover. Suppose the transactions like supply of goods to unregistered dealer at Chennai, the amount will be given. Sale of goods to so and so person, to like in any place like Bangalore, and like goods supplied to a job worker for completion of the job, means this transaction we are not including in the aggregate turnover. The about two transactions what I told now, supply of goods to the unregistered dealer to Chennai and sale of goods to any person, so and so person in Bangalore. So these two transactions comes under the aggregate turnover. And job worker, any transaction related to the job worker is not considered for the aggregate turnover. So some example I quoted here. Next is casual taxable person. So casual taxable person, here the definition is that a person who occasionally undertakes transactions that involving supply of goods or services, or both in the course or in the furtherance of business, whether as principal, as an agent, or in any other capacity in a state or in a union territory where he has no fixed place of business. So casual taxable person means he is not a regular person who do the business. A person who do the business occasionally, his transactions of that is supplying of goods or services, he is a principal. The casual taxable person maybe act as a principal, or he may be act as an agent, or in his capacity in a state or in a union territory, but he has no any fixed place of doing any business. Such a person or such activity of any person, we call it as a casual taxable person. This definition is about the electronic commerce. So the electronic commerce, I give the meaning, but later we are going to give it in explanation in detail. Electronic commerce means the supply of goods or services, or both, including that is on the digital platform or on the electronic network, is called as a electronic commerce. Next is export of goods. Export of goods means that is exporting goods from our home country to other country, or exporting goods from our home country to outside the country, or export of goods means taking goods out of India into a place outside the India. We call it as the export of goods. Next, export of goods, it's given under section 2 subsection 5. Electronic commerce, it's the definition is quoted under section 2 subsection 44. Next is export of services. It is given under section 2 subsection 6. Export of services means the supply of any service by the supplier to the supplier located outside India. The export of services, here the supply of any service when the supplier of services located in India, the recipient of service is located outside India. The place of supply of services to be outside India, and the payment for such service has been received by the supplier of service in a convertible foreign exchange. So here the supplier's payment is to be received in a convertible foreign exchange, and here the supplier of service and the recipient of service are not merely establishments of any distinct persons. So this is the definition for the supplier of services. Next definition is intermediary. It's also one of the term used in GST. It is given under section 2 subsection 13. Intermediary means a broker. Intermediary means we call them as a middleman. Intermediary means a broker, an agent, or any other person by whatever name we call, who arranges or facilitates the supply of goods or services or both between two or more persons, but does not include a person who supplies goods or services or both on his own account. If any supplier supplies goods or services in his own account or in his own name, then we cannot call them as an intermediary. But a person, he may act as an agent or he may act as a broker or in any manner by whatever name we call. He is the person who makes arrangement for the supply of goods or services between two or more persons. Such person activity we call it as a intermediary, as it is defined under section 2 subsection 13. Next is market value. Here the market value, section 2 subsection 73, as per this section, market value means it's a full amount which a recipient of a supply is required to pay. A person who receives the goods from the supplier, he has to pay the full amount. And in order to obtain the goods or services or both of a kind and quality at or about the same time and at the same commercial level, and where the recipient and the suppliers are not related. This is the definition of the market value. Next, mercantile agent. Mercantile agent, as per section 2 subsection 9 of the Sale of Goods Act, according to the Sale of Goods Act, mercantile agent means an agent having any customary course of business. As such agent authority either to sell goods or to consign goods for the purpose of sale, or to buy or to raise money on security of the goods. Such agent we call as a mercantile agent. So these are some definitions of the that we come across in the GST. Still some more definitions are there that I'll cover it in my next session. Thank you.